Hi guys, Nutnfancy here with another knife review. I'm going to cover a subset of fixed tactical blades, which I really like. You might too. And that's this style of knife right here. Daggers. They're cool and they're deadly. I say it's a subset of a fixed tactical blade because it is a purpose-built killing tool. Other tactical designs that I've covered in my videos and will cover in future videos maybe are actually somewhat multi-purpose. You can use them for building fires, shelters, hacking down limbs, splitting wood, cutting up food. You could do a little bit of that with this knife, but let's face it, this knife is purpose-built to kill people. And actually it has a pretty good history of doing just that, especially in modern history. World War I, dagger was used quite effectively. World War II, it really gained fame in the hands of the British commandos, with the predecessor to this blade, the Fairbairn Sykes fighting knife. It was a commando knife designed to penetrate the sentry, take him out. Not long, slender blade. I'm sure you've seen it, and no, I don't have one because I prefer this design better. Anyways, in World War II, daggers were used with great success by the commandos. Also, our Marine Raiders in the Pacific used them against the Japanese forces with success as well. I bring this up just to mention the fact that that's part of the intrigue of having a dagger, is that it ties into that really cool history in World War II, in my opinion, including this blade right here, the Boker Desert Dagger. It's a fine example of a modern day dagger that's been improved on this past designs. First way it does it, I think, is the blade. It has a broader, harder cutting blade than the Fairbairn Sykes version does, I think, which is more stiletto-like and more needle-like in its penetrating capability. That's not to say this knife can't penetrate. It can. It has a nice, strong tip on it, somewhat of a belly towards the front, so it can go through and penetrate, I think, almost as good as that narrower profile one. But in doing so, it's going to cause a lot more damage because of the cruciform design of the blade. Now, this particular blade, and this Boker is a 6-inch blade, by the way, in bead blasted 440C steel. A great steel, doesn't need any introduction or proving. Everyone who knows knives knows that it serves just fine, and I think it's a good choice for this blade. I love the bead blasting on it. It's very handsome. It's low, reflective, which is always cool and preferred in this style of fighting knife. I did note that as it came from the factory, it was quite dull, and I had to change the geometry of the blade. That's really not, well, I guess I was going to say it's not the fault of Boker. In a way it is, though. They should sharpen it better than it came. I mean, it was like a letter opener when I pulled it out of the box. But also it's a function of its design, and that design is that it has that really thick mid chord section here, and it's going to taper down both sides to your cutting edges. But in doing so, it has a really steep taper. So just physics dictate that that steep taper is going to be inherited by your cutting edge. And so what I feel that you have to do with these knives to make them really deadly and much more effective is to back that taper off by doing a secondary grind on your blade, maybe change it to about a 23-24 degree cutting angle. You'll lose a little bit of strength, but you'll gain a lot in sharpness. And I had this done. I'm not skilled enough, nor do I have the wheel necessary to do this. You need a low speed cutting wheel to regrind this knife. I had it done by Razor's Edge in Salt Lake City, and they did a real good job with it. And then once it's squared away like that, then the true potential of this dagger is realized. That is a very deadly and formidable cutting tool, especially in a thrusting or stabbing attack. Like I said before, though, there is a little bit of belly in this region of the blade, so you could actually use it in a sweeping slash attack too if you had to. I think it would have functioned perfect, and in that respect it's superior to the original design. So the blade is perfect. Interestingly enough, the original blade on the Fairbairn Sykes combat knife, or the stiletto if you will, my understanding, the length was determined by how much clothing they figured they were going to go through on a Russian sentry, being about 3 inches, and then they wanted 4 more inches beyond that, I guess. At least that's what I hear, or read somewhere along the way. Now this blade is a little bit shorter. It's 6 inches like we talked about, but I think it serves the purpose well. I don't like really short daggers. I think those kind of defeat the whole purpose. 6 inches is probably my personal minimum for blade length on dagger, because I think reach is important if you're going to be employing this knife as designed. So that's a blade. Handsome, well designed, strong tip. It does need to be reprofiled to get the sharpness out of it. It's stamped with a Boker. The Boker logo on one side, has the signatures of Applegate and Fairbairn on that side. That's kind of cool. Germany, 440C stainless here on the tang. Don't know if you can quite see that. The crossguard is blackened stainless steel or brass, I forget which. Either way, it's well designed. It's nice. It's angled so you can put your thumb on there. It won't allow slippage forward. Could it catch another weapon? Yeah, I guess. I never want to get in that situation where I'm using this knife to catch another knife coming at me, but I guess it could, because it is angled up, so it could function as a trap to some degree. The handle is made of Delrin, which is a hard plastic. I don't mind it. I believe it is a full length design here. As far as the tang, I think it may extend all the way back here, but I'm not positive on that. Either way, I'm not going to be chopping with this knife. So as it is, I think it's substantially strong. Speaking of the handle, it is ergonomic, fits good in the hand. I like it. It's not too short. That's a criticism I have on some other dagger designs. The pommel will stick out a little bit if you need to use it as a non-lethal impact device. They say they put some steel weights in here for balance, so it's more comfortable under prolonged use. I'm not really sure what that means. I think that's kind of odd. I kind of prefer not to have weights in my knife. I got a lot of other things I'm carrying. However, as it is a well-balanced knife, and it's not super heavy. 8.8 ounces for this blade. I think it's overall something like 12 ounces with the Kydex sheath. Speaking of the sheath, it is Kydex, and it's a nice one. I don't really have any issues with it. It inserts well, retains well. When you take it out, by the way, this is your jump retention strap should you parachute with this knife, or you just want to double make sure it's secure. But in my experience, you really don't need this. This sheath really holds the blade. And to get it out, we're going to push that backside out and withdraw the blade. If you just yank on the blade, you're going to have to yank pretty darn hard. And with a super sharp double-edged knife, make sure your hand's nowhere near it, and it could be deadly to you. Riveted all the way around. It doesn't have really a quick attachment method on the sheath, which is somewhat of a hit, because that means I'm going to have to thread my belt through there or somehow fashion a Tech-Lock fastener on this sheath, which is actually quite doable. I could do that. Sheath is relatively light, strong, waterproof, drains well. Has a drainage hole at the end there. So excellent job, good colors. I love the color of the Desert Boker. It's a handsome knife. Overall, I give it probably a 9 out of 10, maybe a 10 out of 10. It's really a nice knife. Great example of a modern and deadly dagger. Competitor, which I'll probably show in a future video, would be the SOG Dagger 2, which has a lot of advantages. I don't want to get into specifics, but that would be a competitor to the Boker for your money, and this one being slightly less. This Boker's about $100, actually maybe a little bit more, and the Desert one's kind of hard to find as it was supposedly a limited edition. They do make this one in black, however I do think it comes with a Cordura sheath, not this way cool and functional Kydex sheath. So if you want this knife, I would definitely search out that Kydex version. It's worth the extra money and the extra searching. I think you would be well armed with this knife. It would suffer maybe perhaps from the carrying problems of all fixed blade knives. They're a little bit heavier, they're long, but if you're wearing webgear of any kind, that's really not a bad thing. The only disadvantage is it's pretty much purpose built for this. Killing forward, so it maybe lacks a little bit of versatility. However, it's cool, it's handsome, and it'll add a lot to your collection and enjoyment, no doubt. Boker Desert Dagger.